table.
All right. Call to order the College Township Council Meeting of Thursday, March 7th. And first item on the agenda is I'm going to ask everyone to stand, if you can, remove your hat, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thank you all in the room for your patience. When you see all of council walking together 5 minutes after the meeting is supposed to start, then that's usually a sign that something's up. So for the record, I just need to announce that this council met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss two matters, one a personnel and one a legal matter, both of which are allowed or permitted under Pennsylvania Sunshine Law. So that takes us to public open discussion. This is the time on the agenda where anyone anyone here needs to address council on anything that's not already on tonight's agenda. Public discussion, now open. Anyone in the room? Anyone online? Sue, anything for public discussion? Okay.
No, thank you.
All right. That takes us to new agenda items, same deal. First, we'll go to the table. Council members requesting anything be added to tonight's agenda? Looking to the left? Looking to the right? Any requests from the public? Consider new agenda items. Hearing none, we'll move to special presentation. Tonight, we have one, SP1 on the agenda, Center County Adult Services, Caitlin Gabrielle, Housing Program Specialist. Caitlin? If you'd just repeat your name for the record and for America on CNET.
My name is Caitlin Gabriel, and I'm from Center County Adult Services. I am the Housing Program Specialist for Adult Services, and this year I had the pleasure of running Point in Time for Center County. It's a national count for homelessness, but it's just a snapshot of one night and the day after. So I did bring up a PowerPoint with me.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm ready.
I guess the kids' table wasn't ready.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to
We
share
gave
that.
extra time to stuff.
I can reopen evaluation.
I know, please.
Wow.
Always in trouble.
That's okay.
Okay.
So
Right.
we do have a little bit of an update from this slide. I apologize for that. If you want to go ahead. We'll cover Point in Time, which is why I initially reached out to all the townships, and then my job and the changes it covers, and then as well as the services Adult Services provides and looks to grow for. If you want to go ahead. So what we knew so far at this time was that we always canvass the county with 6 teams. And they cover, Center County is big, so we cover as much as we can. We can't cover the forested areas for safety reasons, as well as for the increase in ticks. We're just not going to do it. If you want to go to the next slide. So we had volunteers from 9 agencies, ranging from volunteers in the Veteran Services to the shelters, YSB, Center Safe, as well as staff from Adult Services. We always bring care packages for those we may find. They are small. They are usually information, including housing resources and a couple snacks and water for on the go. But we recognize that that is very overwhelming when you just approach someone that's homeless and say, here's all these numbers, good luck. So we look forward to next year creating more of a flow sheet and saying, these are where you start. These are the starting points. Like 211 is a statewide agency that provides sources and gets you on referral lists for things like rapid rehousing, prevention referrals that come to my office, and all those kinds of things. If you want to go to the next slide. So last year, we identified 3 street homeless people. And when I say that, I mean literally nowhere to go. 203 were identified in the sheltered populations, and that covers YSB, Center Safe, housing transitions, as well as out of the cold. This year, we had 5 observations and 9 surveys and counted a total of 14 homeless and that was across the county. Historically, we see those numbers come from the borough, but this year we saw them across all of the rural areas and the borough. We saw a range of lean-tos, tents, encampments, vehicles, you name it, we saw it. This year, we had the manpower to actually send a team out at night, which gave us more of an insight as to, you know, during the day, people have the shelters to stay in and friends to couch surf, but at night, those landlords that say you have to be out, or those day programs that are only open till 5, this captures more of a number. If you want to go to the next
Can you
slide.
just tell me what YSB stands for?
Youth Service Bureau.
Okay. Am I on?
We, in an effort for outreach, we reached out to all 67 municipalities of Center County, as well as the school districts and the agencies that often work with us for this project. We did receive 3 responses from the municipality, this being the first one, and we are often looking for if anyone knows of a lead for a person that is suffering from homelessness or struggling even with rent or utilities, because our agency does provide that kind of service as well. We received 2 leads the day of the survey, and we were able to follow up, locating 2 more people who struggled with homelessness. It ranges from transient populations to people who have just been evicted. We do see a lot of individuals who choose to sometimes not follow through or are overwhelmed and don't know where to start. And that's a lot of why we're looking for future growth and more manpower next year, looking for more volunteers so we can do more night teams and day in an effort to capture and support the people that we do find. We did have 2 that we were able to follow up with agency support after the point in time, and they were able to receive more services to help them get back on their feet. We debriefed on the 14th, and that was a lot of the conversation about what can we add to those care packages, things like small toothpaste and a toothbrush, or personal hygiene products, shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, all those kinds of things, but small, because again, they don't have anywhere to place these things. We also are looking into things like socks and maybe a pair of underwear or hat and scarf, because this always takes place in January on the 3rd week. You want to go ahead? So point in time is always in January. We always have reach out in the end of December, early January, to remind everyone. If anyone is interested in participating in the future, please feel free to reach out to the office. If you have ideas that you want me to bring back to the team that volunteers, feel free. My information is on this slide, as well as I do have cards. So this brings me to my position. The housing program specialist is meant as an educational service for the county, for coworkers, for case managers, for agencies. My job is to give you the information on the housing resources we have access to, the things that we're looking at bringing up, and then any other questions if there's a tough client and you need to just kind of brainstorm. I'm who you call. So if you want to go ahead. Historically, I did do a lot of direct service for clients who had those unique obstacles, but we have shifted a little bit so that I can focus more on the educational options coming to Pennsylvania, the grants that are being awarded to Pennsylvania, and all of those types of things. We do have an intake specialist that now does those direct service, and she is what we call the resource guru, so you can call our main office for that kind of resource. My position oversees the 811 program, which is similar to the voucher list, but it's much smaller. We have 2 locations and 9 units across Center County that operate at a 30% income based. You must have a long-term service, which in this case is usually a caseworker. You must be eligible for Medicaid, and if there are any drug charges such as meth, you are ineligible for the program. We always search for apartments and develop relationships with landlords in an effort to house the people who have more unique obstacles to housing. We are seeing that get more difficult as it goes on, because with criminal records and income, it is increasingly difficult to place people. We do collaborate with reentry quite often to get people back into the community, and we oversee the 211 referrals that I was speaking about earlier that come into our agency. Last month, we received 28 referrals, and 5 of those were for finance. The rest were saying, I don't know where to go, I don't have income, help me find housing. I brought the resources that we often hand out with us. That we have the resource guide, which is the orange book, and we have the resource list, which is landlords across Center County that are more willing to work with the people that come to our office looking for assistance. We just updated that list, and about a week later, there are updates. Unfortunately, more landlords drop and say, you know what, we've dealt with the emergency rental assistance program, we've dealt with the rental assistance program, we don't really want to deal with a third program. Which brings me to our next slide. You want to go ahead? ERAP is a very well-known program across Center County. It recently shifted as of this month. You still must be eligible with a shutoff or an eviction, but it will pay for the 3 future months if you're eligible for that service. It is expected and projected to end in 2024. I do not have an exact month, but that service will be disappearing as of this year. RAP is a very small program. It can provide $1,000 in assistance to a single family household and $1,500 to a family. You are then ineligible for that service for the next 2 years. It is meant to prevent eviction or help you move in. Often what we see is that $1,000 or $1,500 is not enough to cover a first month and security deposit. So we partner with other agencies in the community to try to make that difference, and typically ask that the client put at least a little bit forward if they can. ESG is a newer program. It is for renters only. And the eligibility for all of these programs can be found on our website. I didn't want to dive in that tonight because you could get lost in that, and it's different for every program. We cannot exceed 6 months of arrears for ESG, and it cannot exceed 24 months in renter's private lease. It cannot help you prevent an eviction if it's not based on monetary reasons. And utility shutoffs not attached to an eviction. ESG is a very, very specific program for income-based, and you must be willing to meet with case management and do a budget, and the house that you're staying in or the unit that you're staying in must pass a code based on ESG protocols. Again, more of that can be found on our website, and I can email that to you as well. You want to go ahead? Case management started as a way to address the people falling through the cracks for other agencies, but as we've gone on, we've seen it grow. To be eligible for case management, you cannot have another caseworker, and often what happens is that our caseworker will connect you with the appropriate resource, whether that's mental health case management, drug and alcohol, youth service bureau. He will dive in. He's very resourceful. He will complete an intake and make as many referrals as possible for you. It is a short-term program. It's meant to help you move on to what's best for you. And if it's determined that a person has no other option for case management, Glenn will work with you to try to connect appropriately. He gets along with everyone. Some of you have met him. He is very resourceful and open to having conversations. So if you want to talk about case management, just call the front office and he will get back to you if he can. The whole home repair program was new to Center County as of last year. We had several applications, so as of August 22nd of 23, it stopped receiving any more new applications. Projects are underway from anything from new roofs to making it more handicap accessible for homeowners. It's a program that Center County has never seen before and actually addressed homeowners rather than renters. It has taught us a lot about the needs and looking at future programs for homeowners. Services include the workforce development. We do have a case manager whose name is Rachel, and she will address more finite needs with them if we find them while we're providing that service. $50,000 per household is allowed for the repairs. And often what we see is when we go in to provide these services, more needs make themselves known and we address as needed. If you are seeking repair, we will do our best to connect you with other resources that have tried to address those needs, but we will ask that you call the office for that kind of intake and resource management. This is very tiny, and I apologize for that, but it's the flow chart of adult services. At the top is Faith Ryan. She's our director. But then as you work your way down, we do have the assistant director, Jeffrey Dobler, and the two specialists, which is myself and Rebecca Spangler. She's our quality manager. And then we have all of our caseworkers ranging from ERAP to case management to intake and the adult service screener herself. If anyone needs assistance with rental, arrears, utilities, they are to call the adult services screener because she will go through a screening process with you to help you determine which program you're eligible for and where to go from there. And she'll help you schedule accordingly. If there's any questions, feel free to ask if you want to go to the next slide. These are helpful links for point in time. The COC puts this on every year. So if you want to look at previous years, just keep in mind, if you look at 21, it is very different because of COVID. And then federal poverty is usually something that is looked at for people, whether or not they're eligible for the program, and under 200% is where we can help you operate. So you would just plug your income in, your family household size, and it would let you know where you fall. And that is my information, so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at any time, and I will do my best to get your answer for you if I don't know it on the spot.
Well, on the spot is where you are right now, so Adam, any follow-up?
Actually, I did have a question, just for clarity, when we talk about adult services, are we talking about an age range?
18 to 59.
Okay, so anything younger than 18 would be youth services, perhaps, or children, and anything over 59 would be senior services?
That's not to say that if you call, we'll do our best to connect you to those services outside of us. We will literally try to find every resource for you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, let's stay on this side. Tracy, anything?
No.
Rich?
No questions. Thank you for your service. It's a growing need, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately.
Susan?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the flow chart. I do work in healthcare, and I didn't know much about your services, and I have a patient who's homeless. So, and she's not the first, and I don't think she'll be the last. So it is a growing problem, and I appreciate that there are services out there. Unfortunately, there's a disconnect between all the service providers in all the different areas, so this is a great step forward in bringing this, and I appreciate what you did with Point in Time as well. That's a lot of hard work, and you found people who were needed help, so thank you.
We do work with the social workers at Mount Nittany.
Yeah.
We reach out to them a lot, and they reach out to us a lot, so we are in constant communication about these issues.
You know what the problem is? The problem is we're fragmented. And so I might be the person who sees them in the room. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I'll see the patient, I'll see the need. And by the time we get the order out and get it, and the time is now. People have needs now. And so, sometimes it's helpful for someone like me to be able to circumvent some of the steps we have to take in the system.
Absolutely.
And get the help immediately. So this is hugely helpful to me, personally and professionally. Sure. And I guess one question I would have for you is there anything we can do for you?
We do our best to address any of that disconnect you were speaking of, as far as people who come to us and say, I have this, and this. Help. We will reach out to practitioners as we can. We will reach out to those social workers as we can. But if we have questions, I promise you that we are not afraid to call and say, hey, I have this person who has, pick a concern, which way do I go? And then from there, we're hoping to build those bridges as well. We've been working very hard to reach out to agencies, practitioners, doctors across therapy, across Mount Nittany, Geisinger, the new building coming in. We want to make ourselves known and make it known that, hey, we're trying to bring a community approach. We don't want this us versus them kind of mentality. So we've been working very hard on that, and I believe Crystal, who is our intake person, has reached out to about 60 agencies in the last year, and it continues to grow.
Thank you.
few quick questions before we let you go. I think you, at the beginning, you said you sent out information to all the municipalities and some, including College, responded and asked for a presentation. Is that what happened?
Yep.
Okay.
We had 3 respond to us,
Oh.
and I am going to go out to the communities and to those offices because I do recognize that they're there for a certain day or hour and say, hey, this is my face, this is what I do. How can I help you? How can you help us? And we're
Is
just
that
trying to,
3 of the 31
of the
municipalities
67.
in the county?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We were one of the 3? Okay. You referenced volunteers, and for anybody who's listening, was it Crystal's contact? Who would they contact?
For point in time volunteer, you would contact myself or my director, Faith Ryan. The next one will be January, but again, we start doing that prep work in December of this year for the official point in time count. We're talking about looking at potential students in social work departments. I myself came from rehab and human services, so reaching out to those types of students and saying, hey, you want to do a solid for your community, you want to learn more about what we have to offer here in Center County, come to us, this is a good opportunity. There is also a new opportunity for those with lived experience. They can receive paid time for coming out to speak with people who are currently experiencing homelessness.
Okay, this is a discussion item and not an action item, so we normally wouldn't open the floor up for questions from the audience, but
That's fine.
we have an audience member who would like to ask, apparently like to ask a question, so we're gonna give her the opportunity. Sue?
Thanks. Crystal, did I miss how many you found in the point in time? Usually there's a report in the paper that tells what all you found, but I didn't hear a number.
We've located 14 this year, and that report in the paper will come out. This was, I believe, a couple weeks ago we got the final numbers. So
Oh, okay.
it just probably hasn't come out
seen
yet.
it. And then actually there was home house repairs for many years done by for humanity, done by volunteers. I'm really glad to see that there is a program now because that's a real problem for us paying for home repair. So it seems like it's not helping very many, but at least it's thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so Sue does some really fine work in lots of areas like this, and that's why she gets to ask questions like this.
Sure, yeah. I support it.
All right, anybody else, last chance, before we cut Caitlin loose? All right, hey, thanks for
Yeah, of course.
spending some time with us
Unfortunately, I do
tonight.
have to leave. I can't stay for the rest of the meeting. But
You have work to do.
No offense
She
taken.
will just leave these here.
Yes.
And we'll just put them up front.
And
Yep.
again, any questions, contact our office. We're
Thank you
always
very
there.
much. That's great.
Thank you.
Yep.
That concludes.
Thank you.
That concludes our only special presentation tonight. That takes us to reports. First item on the reports is the manager's report. Does the manager have anything he would like to add?
Actually, the only thing, and I can do it now, or I can wait until we get to the staff, other reports, but the College Township Water Authority did have the presentation the council received on the 15th of February from Pam Adams concerning the solar power purchase arrangement or agreement. I'll just do it right now. The upshot is that the Water Authority had identified 50% of their total power needs to be provided through the SPPA, and that has not changed at this point, either up or down. So the Water Authority is looking forward to the receipt of the final contracts, just as College Township itself is sometime in April, early part of May, considering the Water Authority meets that very first week, would be my expectation, assuming Pam and the schedule for those documents and the final documents come through. We should all be signed up in the coming month or so. So that's the only real update. The only thing, other thing that I will mention quickly is that we did have an Aspen deadline for response back on some identified violations of the land development plan, which had to do with some monies that were due and payable to the township as part of the land development approval the council gave to the Aspen project. They had a deadline to respond by February 29th. They have not done so, and so the solicitor and I are coordinating an appropriate response back on that issue. So that's everything that I have, but happy to try to answer any questions.
Questions? Tracy? Rich?
No questions.
Susan? Maybe February 29th just wasn't on their calendar.
It's a possibility.
Overlook?
Doesn't exist.
We could hope.
Yes. All right, if there's no further questions from the manager, we can move to COG Regional, County, and Liaison reports. We'll start with our council COG committee members, and working in chronological order. The first one we had since the last meeting would have been Susan at College Township Industrial Development Authority, provided us a written report. Anything you want to add beyond what's in there?
No, you have the written report. The only thing I'd like to say is that I think coming to the meetings over the last year, the growth and the development at the CTIDA is tremendous. Carrie gave a PowerPoint presentation, an orientation presentation for the 3 new members that were seated, Jack Igo, Richard Button, and John Peterson. So now there's a full complement for the first time on the Industrial Authority, and Carrie has done a great job putting together that orientation, identifying the mission, and really doing a lot of work to organize the authority around documentation and the committee structure, and really the pace of change and growth is very impressive. So I do have a copy of that orientation presentation. It's a pretty quick read. I think it might be helpful. I didn't include it in the packet, but I'm happy to email it to any of you if you're interested in it. And I think that's about it. I did include 2 links in the package. One is to the LinkedIn page. If you're not there, please get there. She's posting almost daily some great stuff, and also highlighting some of the partnerships that she's developing. So this aligns really nicely with the Dale Summit work that we're doing and looking at workforce development and workforce housing. So pretty exciting to be part of that group and to be a liaison. So thank you.
Questions? Comments? We've certainly come a long way in
Yeah.
the past couple of years.
Long way.
It's very good to hear. The next meeting that would have come up would have been the Safety Committee on February 27th, and I think we got, Rich, did you provide a written report? You guys collaborated on a written report?
Rich went in my stead.
That's what I thought.
Did you?
So anything to add?
No,
Beyond that?
nothing to add to the report.
Any questions then on that Safety Committee report? Okay, that would take us then to the next meeting would have been Center County MPO Coordinating Committee meeting of February 27th. I did include a committee only meets 5 times a year. The meetings tend to be long, and the font tends to get really small if you try to get it down to 1 page. So I don't know if we had one more agenda item, we'd have been on a 2-pager. The only thing that I wanted to expand a bit on was the discussion about electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And just in case any of the thoughts bleed out beyond the MPO to the local municipal level, the MPO has access to grant monies that are specific, or to be specifically used to develop an electric vehicle charging charging infrastructure. What we, at the MPO level, what we had asked the members to do was to agree to appoint a coordinating committee member to a subcommittee to vet the particular projects that these funds, that would be eligible to be funded through these specific funds. The discussion went a bit sideways because we had some folks who felt rather strongly about electric vehicle charging, the future of electric vehicle charging. So that kind of, that got us a little bit off track. In the end, we circled back and we decided to appoint someone to the committee and charge the committee with evaluating that aspect of it. The point being that the funds are not competing with funds for roads and bridges, and that was one of the concerns. So we either try to take advantage of these funds and invest countywide in some electric vehicle infrastructure, or we pass on them. So what it really came down to then was, is it worth the investment of time to deliberate and to vet the potential projects? And that's ultimately what the debate centered on, and we decided we would let the subcommittee determine that. So I just thought it was important to note that there is some passionate opposition or passionate feelings about the future of electric vehicles, to the extent that some feel it's not worth the effort to even consider investing in the infrastructure. Adam?
I did have a very quick question. The grant money that you have for infrastructure, are they primarily targeted at larger scale endeavors, or is it targeted to any scale endeavor?
Good question. First of all, we don't have the money yet. It would be, I shouldn't say that. We don't have the money ready to spend, but it's all over the map.
Okay.
And it's relatively new, and so there's a lot of questions like that that have to be answered. One of the other difficult challenges with this is all of the eligible projects aren't necessarily things that have been identified on our long-range transportation plan, which is our big picture priority list, and therefore none of them are on the tip. So it opens up that debate. You know, here we are focusing energy on things that have not been identified as long-range transportation objectives. But along comes an opportunity to do things that many feel that the community wants to be done with this specific funding source. So it's difficult. I mean, I can see both, and that's why we ended up delegating that responsibility to the committee, because we would still be there today, a week later, debating the merits of. And this is not going to go away. The other thing that came up is that some tip amendments. There are funding sources out there, carbon reduction. There's a bunch of acronyms for, again, projects to do things like under carbon reduction, signal timing coordination. There is funding out there to support replacing signals so that they're better coordinated to move traffic through corridors quicker, you know, under the carbon reduction CR something, I forget. So again, we're going to be faced with these similar decisions where if we invest the time, we can access money or lose the money that we're entitled to for these projects that do not appear on our 12-year plan or our TIP, because they weren't necessarily identified as highest priority projects. So it's a matter of opportunity. You know, do we take advantage of the opportunity to do these, some would call second or third tier transportation projects? We'll continue to discuss that at the MPO level. Any other questions on that before we go to Parks Governance? Rich, Parks Governance, February 28th?
Right, we started work on our second step. The first step, general forum, having approved our matrix of how the various bodies would carve up the parks work. Now we're looking at the structure for those bodies. We made it through the majority of them. We're down to future current and future COG committee work. And then the big one would be the authority overall and everything. But all that towards, we spent an hour and a half of good discussions. It's coming back next meeting, which will be later this month, and then we're shooting to have something in the no later than May, to have something else new before the general forum to check off our second step.
Questions for Rich? All right, Adam, were you just, anything in that, on that?
No.
Okay. Then the most recent meeting was facilities, which was just Tuesday. I sent out a written report, and the only thing I would want to point out is if you look at the determination that was made on the facilities coordinator under other business, in consultation with the chair, the vice chair, and Eric Norenberg, and the COG directors, they all felt, the staff felt very strongly that it would work better if they delayed the hiring of the facilities coordinator until a new executive director was in place. I'll just say that that was ultimately the determination. So there was quite a bit of discussion and debate, but that was, that's what was ultimately decided to do. I can see both sides. All right,
Before we, sorry,
go ahead.
jumping to PC, I attended the emergency, the legislative, the Seven Mountains Emergency Services legislative breakfast this morning. It's a big title. And I didn't submit a report, but I did want to bring back just a couple of points that came that I asked about and that folks at the meeting thought were relevant for me to bring back to council. Center Life Link was there and represented and brought to our attention that currently when they send an ambulance out for a call, it costs them about $500 and they get about $400 reimbursement on each. So they are losing money, and they're getting about 12% return on the memberships. And so they were looking for any opportunities that anyone in township, anywhere could help in terms of membership, requests. So that was something that Kent brought forward. A couple of other municipalities are working on developing emergency services authorities to replace the EMS services to do a better job getting reimbursement for those emergency services. Obviously, it's a big problem. And they talked a lot today about workforce development, looking back at school districts, bringing back EMS and fire safety training programs into the high schools, even as young as junior high, trying to get people engaged and get them sort of into a pipeline to get into emergency services careers. So there's a lot of really good ideas, and our representative Paul Takak was there and shared some insights from Harrisburg. But it was a good meeting, and it sounded like there was some good energy around trying to get better support going for emergency services.
If there is a consensus here that we do what we can to get the word out on the ambulance subscription membership, I think
Yes.
is what it is that something we could just maybe put a link on our website, or?
I
Put in
think
the gateway.
that we can link on the website. I think we also have the opportunity to incorporate it into the upcoming spring newsletter.
Yeah.
My question would only be, is there an end point for the subscription, or is it kind of rolling?
So I'm not sure. I think it's an annual, but one of the things that he brought up is they get about a 12% return on the letters that they send out. So the services subscription, the membership is $75 to $100 depending on the family size. And what they are looking at, they actually have a target. They'd like to get a 27% return and 24% return. So they're looking to double the return. So that's very specific, and I'm going to meet with Kent next week over there to take a tour. So I can get more information and bring that back to you, Jen, if you want to put it in the newsletter.
Perfect.
I'll get some information and bring it back.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you for letting me report on that, Eric.
Sure. Well, it's good stuff. Rich?
Just to follow up on your facilities report, so is the intent that there will be no activity on the facility coordinator recruiting until a new executive director, or just no hiring?
No recruitment or hiring. So I think there'll be further discussion on that. The important point was, were we starting right now or are we waiting?
Right.
But I think the two sides of that discussion, one of the sides would like to see the recruiting portion begin. So I think we'll have some more discussion on that.
And I would just throw that out, that as a point of reference, in the Finance Committee meeting, it was being thrown out that some of the work that needed to be done to educate the CIP and this and that and the other thing couldn't be done because we didn't have a facility coordinator. Mixed bag on that. We only had a facility coordinator for like 3 or 4 years, so.
Yeah, it sounded like a good point and argument until we went in that direction. So needless to say, it took a while for consensus between the chair, the vice chair, and the staff to be reached on that.
Okay.
But the staff felt very strongly that it would be better if the executive director had the opportunity to at least hire the new director. The biggest issue was that the thought was if the person would come on board during this transition period may not be the best way to start. I respect that.
No, I absolutely agree that the new director should hire the person.
Right. So I think we can find that sweet spot.
Right.
Where we can have somebody on board as soon as possible.
Right.
Under the direction and the determination of the executive director. Okay, that takes us to staff, PC, and other committee reports. Matt put together, it sounded like very weary-eyedly put together his planning commission report for us. Matt, why don't you come up, because I know if there's anything else you have to add beyond that, I know that at least I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna add something. The Center County Office of Aging Advisory Council met on March 6th. It looks like I got the wrong thing, sorry. That was you. The planning commission notes from 2:15 and 3:5. Yeah, we basically, the Maxwell storage site on Struble Road plan, we broke it down into 2 separate parts. First part, we looked at the actual site, and it's pretty easy to decide there. The second part with the sidewalk and the stormwater situation, all that stuff, a little bit harder to decide. But we did come up with a recommendation of 4 votes yes, 1 no, and 2 absent. So does anybody have any questions on?
Yeah, let's deal with this, well, let's deal with that one first. So, Susan, any questions on the
I don't.
Maxwell deliberation?
No.
Rich?
You might.
No? All right, I'll circle back to you. Were you?
No, I had nothing.
Okay. Did we have staff at Planning Commission? Lindsay?
Yeah.
Okay, anything to add to Maxwell beyond what he's reporting?
You'll see Maxwell's plan at your upcoming meeting, and their recommendation will talk about sidewalk fee in lieu. It's one of the big points
Okay.
that we discussed.
I live right across the street. I think everybody knows that. So 2 questions.
I didn't, actually.
You were the one no vote.
Yes.
Was it the sidewalk, the stormwater, what in particular was?
Well, they keep saying the hardship on the developer, and I don't think we understand the hardship.
This is in reference to the sidewalks?
On sidewalk, sorry. I don't think we understand the hardship on the homeowners. I think a lot of homeowners don't understand the right-of-way, things like that. So when we eventually do put the sidewalk in, I think some of the people are gonna look at it and say, boy, they're taking away my yard. I guess there's an issue that one of the fences or something is in the right-of-way. So I do think we have to understand that there is a bit of a hardship on the homeowners. So that was my reason for voting. And honestly, figuring out which side to put the sidewalk in because of the stormwater situation was really tough to,
Yeah.
so probably, the correct decision probably was, I could have said yes, but I just felt the issue about the hardship on the homeowners needed to be addressed.
Okay. Just an observation, and I will have our chance bite at the apple, but I agree with the Planning Commission on moving it to the side of the road where the houses are. Makes more sense. Of course, then you run into the hardship you talked about. But it is, people are walking that road at night with no streetlights, walking dogs, pushing strollers. So, it is something that's needed. It just happens to be a situation where it would be easier to put it in on the other side of the road. But then we run into a stormwater capital improvement plan.
Then you have to cross the road, and it does connect
Yeah.
to you, you know.
So you're either asking people to cross the road to walk on the sidewalk, or you're potentially interfering with, some land, some private property.
Really, neither outcome is ideal.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Well, I appreciate the deliberation over and the thoughtfulness given to it. The next item, did you have anything beyond on workforce housing?
No, just to say that this was Tuesday night, my notes, we probably, on the 15th, we probably spent at least an hour. We spent almost the whole meeting Tuesday night, so it was a lot of rapid fire. So my notes were pretty hastily taken. I think I added that right at the end. I think probably one of the interesting things is we got talking about the lot size, setbacks, building height and all that stuff. I think probably about 10 minutes before the meeting ended, somebody said, well, this looks like it's getting close to the form-based code. And I think back at the time, whether it was in January or last year, we were pretty adamant about separating the workforce housing, from form-based code. And Tuesday night, it sort of came together.
It'll be a good segue to form-based code when we get there. So it's working out well, I think.
Oh, okay. I like that take on it.
I love it when a process comes together.
All right, any questions for Matt, looking to the left here? No? Rich? No?
Yeah, thank you for your reports, Matt. They're very helpful.
Yes. Susan?
Thank you.
No, as always, Matt, thanks. Appreciate it. On behalf of council, all the work planning commission, all it
And
does.
sort of off the record, but Caitlin, you guys asked that it's the youth and then the people up to 59. I actually am a member of the Center County Office of Aging, and once you reach 60, then all that stuff will go to us. Thank you.
Yes.
More College Township residents making a difference across the county.
It's what we do. It's like what Bo Nichols said. It's what we do. Other staff reports? Anything from other staff members?
I'm going to do this, and I'll probably regret it, but I wanted to, and council may regret it.
That's
But
what I'm worried about.
this is a report that spans, I believe, a portion of COG Public Services and COG HR. And it has to do with the hiring of additional fire code inspectors / firefighters. At one of the last occurring meetings, and I believe it actually would have been the Public Safety Committee meeting, there had been a job description that was part of the packet materials that was reviewed. That job description was also reviewed not only by Public Safety, but also by HR. The HR committee gave authorization to COG staff to move forward with beginning to do the recruitment, provided there were not significant or consequential comments forthcoming on the job description from the Labor Council. And what has happened is those substantial comments have in fact come forward from the Labor Council. So the anticipated start in the recruitment that had been identified for April is now, that's definitely in jeopardy, it's in limbo. It looks now that it will be at least summer, and it could be longer because there are some concerns with the comments that have been made by Labor Council concerning how the job descriptions for these positions are going to be written and how they're written impacts the potential of labor negotiations. So, or bargaining unit development and negotiations. So I just wanted, that happened as of 5:15 today, and I just thought I would pass that on, because I don't know if that is widely known either at HR or at public safety. So,
And,
okay.
yeah, I know that there were concerns about that potential, and so it sounds like it's more of a concern now, so it's been moved back. Thank you.
Right, in the, at the
Public safety.
rescheduled public safety, it was supposed to be early in the month, ended up late in the month, but they did share that because of the legal comments that were coming out, that the whole process was shifting right. It sounds like it shifted further right from what you're saying, but.
At the moment, that's the way it appears.
Yeah, because not only was there the job descriptions, but there's a whole bunch of policies that need to be put in place to support that. And so that they want to get, they want and should get all that in place before they move forward.
Breaking news, you heard it here first. Anybody else with any other staff reports? What about our assistant manager's report?
Well, I happen to have the diversity, equity, and inclusion
All right, we'll
report for
take
this
that.
evening. And fast on the heels of Black History Month, we have Women's History Month. However, I also want to report that there are a number of different dates and months in March that are worthy of mention. So, for example, March is also National Nutrition Month. It's National Kidney Month. March 4th through 8th is National School Breakfast Week. March 4th is World Obesity Day. March 8th is International Women's Day. March 10th through 16th is Sleep Awareness Week. March 14th is World Kidney Day. And March 15th is World Sleep Day. So we captured a number of them.
Taking the 15th off.
Well, thank you. Kind of anxious to get Mike Bloom back in the seat.
I understand.
All right, that concludes all of our reports then, unless I'm missing anything. And that will take us to consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes, under CA1, one set of minutes, the minutes from our regular meeting, council's regular meeting of February 15th, 2024. It includes 3 pieces of correspondence under CA2, CA2A, a letter from Central Pennsylvania Fourth Fest dated February 29th, 2024 regarding a contribution, CA2B, letter from Clearwater Conservancy dated February 23rd, 2024 regarding Watershed Cleanup Day 2024. I believe it's April, I had that, sorry, we'll circle back to that.
April 20th.
20th, okay. CA2C, email from Ned Brokloff dated March 3rd, 2024 regarding his resignation from the Parks and Rec Committee. It also includes 4 action items under CA3, CA3A, Resolution R-24-15, A203, Residential Rental Fee Schedule, CA3B, Resolution R-24-16, April as Safe Digging Month, CA3C, reappointment to the Building and Housing Board of Appeals, Brian Walker, P.E., a 3-year term commencing April 1st, 2024, running through March 30th, 2027. The appointment to the Building and Housing Board of Appeals of Heather Fink, R.A., 3-year term commencing April 1st, 2024 through March 30th, 2027. And then lastly, CA3D, letter of support to federal legislators regarding Clearwater Conservancy's Community Conservation Center. That is the entirety of the council consent agenda. Would anyone like any of those items pulled for discussion before we consider action? No?
Just they don't need to.
April 20th, since in case anybody missed that, the watershed cleanup day is Saturday, April 20th.
Right, and I would ask, is that something that we could get posted to the website and potentially push as well?
Sure,
Push
absolutely.
notification?
We have been.
Okay, and then for CA3D, is staff looking for direction on
the-
whether to send those letters or?
Well, obviously, anytime that we send a letter of support, we seek council authorization or consensus to do so. And these are ripe for that this evening. This is a project that's within the township. The assumption is that we do not have there is not an issue in supporting Clearwater in this quest.
Right,
and
so Mr. Chair, I'd ask to pull CA3D.
Okay, any others? Then at this point, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented, minus item CA3D. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting it as proposed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, we've accepted the consent agenda minus CA3D. Rich?
Yeah, just, are you looking for a consensus or an actual motion?
The motion would be fine, even just having left it on the consent agenda would have sufficed
Yeah.
as an indication of approval for sending, but we can make it even more official now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it does, but, so, yeah, if you're looking for a motion, I'd make a motion to approve the sending of the letters of support.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay. Discussion on the motion. Before we get off this, we need to follow up on that, because I would have moved right through this thing, assuming if we accepted the consent agenda, that's,
But we're receiving historically, that would be receiving the correspondence, not directing staff to
Yeah.
take an
In
action.
this particular instance, Rich is correct. Normally, there are 3 categories that we list under the consent agenda, 4, actually. Well, actually, that's not true.
We always do 3.
it's listed as an action.
I mean, it is action, I'm sorry, so it is on as an action.
It is, but that's not something that, it was received as a correspondence first.
Oh, I should have had it up
Well, I
there.
see what you're saying
Yeah.
in that case, because there is an email
Yeah.
that was received. We're looking for your support,
Right.
and then here are the letters, so we should have
Yeah.
separated
You
the
could have
two.
done them at 2 and 3.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Potentially.
your
Point-
question is it
But we
two?
cleaned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Your question-
it's a
okay.
process
Yeah, yeah.
question,
Point
making it
taken.
clear
Point
that
taken.
council is understood, we got asked and we're saying yes.
And so that would go under CA2, is what you're saying?
The email. and then
Yes,
the-
okay,
ideally.
that's what I'm asking, just process.
Yes,
So I
ideally, it would have been under
understand. So it was-
CA2, and we would
got
have
it.
pulled it and then taken action.
Understood.
It's just
I got you.
knitting, yep.
It's process.
I'm playing the Bernier role today.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Okay, I can take it.
Down here.
Can take
Move
it.
over here.
Yep, all right. So, we have a motion, we have a second. We've had probably more than necessary discussion on it. At least the last 30 seconds or so was more than we needed. So with that, the chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All
I was
right.
gonna vote no, just,
I'm okay with that guy. So we've accepted CA3D. All right, that takes us out of and completes the consent agenda, takes us to old business, which fortunately we don't have any, because we have 3 new business items. First one being NB1, College Township Finance Report. Bob's been sitting here patiently listening to us go on about much of nothing, so that he can provide us with our year-end finance report.
Okay, well, good evening, council, and thank you once again for this opportunity to be here to do this. Always appreciate this opportunity. And just so you know, the auditing firm was here. They did the field work. That's been completed, so as far as I know, they're back assembling the statements or reviewing statements, and we should probably see them, I would think, the first meeting in June to present the audit. Okay, this is 2023 year. I like to start, I usually like to do a little deep dive in a couple of things here, and I would take an opportunity to reintroduce council to the staff in the finance department. We have Becky Wagner, and there's been no change. We've been very fortunate. We've had some real consistency. The last changeover was whenever Jeff left and replaced with Jackie. Becky's been here for 25 years of service. She's our Water Authority Customer Service Representative, does a fantastic job. Tanya, 14 years of service, and she's really collects all the taxes and distributes them, and does a fine job with that. Also, in addition to that, she greets people, and she helps out with the Water Authority billings and collections and that kind of sort of thing. Kim Petishnock, 7 years of service. She's the accounting assistant, and she handles all the payables and the payroll, and she's been helping out a good bit with benefits, and also she does sends out the township billings, and finally she does she comes to all the Water Authority meetings and takes the minutes and runs the Zoom meetings and just does a great job. Jackie Saylor, she's the newest one, a member of our team, and 3 years of service. And she maintains the general ledger, does monthly bank reconciliations and the ticket statements in the banks, deposits the town, all the receipts of the township, and a number of special assignments as needed. So we try to keep, to the best we can, to the best of our ability, we try to keep the duties segregated so that there's not, so that we have a continual internal controls that are in place. Okay, we work with a number of different partners. Well, the township does, I should say, the finance department in particular. Banking and investment services. We use a local bank for investing and their checking, and they provide a number of different features to protect our funds, which is really good in this day and age. Local government investment trust for additional investment options. That would be the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust. Insurances, we have liability, cyber, property, workers' compensation, and other lines of coverage. Again, we use a local broker, and they really go above board. They meet with us quarterly, and they're always looking to secure renewals at a better price or for better coverage. So they're always looking out for us. Employee Benefit Administration, we have brokers for our life and disability plans, for dental and medical dependent care reimbursement plan. We use the regional cooperative for medical and dental plans, which is, I think it's been fantastic. Over the years, we received some reimbursements. We haven't this year, but we have in the past. And then we use a local law firm whenever there's anything of sticky personnel matter comes up or whatever, which is very infrequently, but there has been a couple times over the years that we've had to do that. We have not, the 2022 was a banner year for debt service. We had the Township and the Water Authority both entered into new debt arrangements. This year we didn't have that, but when we do have a need for debt, we have an independent company who keeps their finger on the market and just lets us know whenever we have an opportunity to refinance our existing debt. And then when we do have to do debt, we have bond counsel and solicitor for legal compliance. And then finally, we have the financial statement auditing services. We use a local company again it's an independent company to render opinions on our annual financial statements. And they also provide select advisory services from time to time for different various things. Finance department task. Last year, I think I gave you metrics. This year is just more concentrating on what we do. Financial services for not only township, but for the Water Authority and the Industrial Development Authority, financial and accounting reporting and record keeping, debt administration, and again, we had no new issues in 2023. Financial management is a big piece. We do audit support for all those three entities. There's insurance premiums and state liquid fuel monies that we need to comply with. Those issues. We coordinate the issues of the Water Authority and Township annual budgets. And there's a number of regulatory reports that we have to submit on time. Tax collection, we collect the real estate taxes for the township and the State College Area School District, and that number usually is in the area of $23 million, $24 million. Then we have to account for that through monthly reporting to township and the school district, and then at the end of the year to the county. The Township Water Authority, billings, collection, and customer support, and then of course financial transactions, weekly accounts payable, processing, and billings of receivables. And we have bi-weekly payrolls, so there's 26 payrolls, and then the quarterly and financial and annual reporting that goes along with that. And then we have a couple miscellaneous things we do. There's meetings of the human resource officers, finance directors, and the COG Finance Committee. And that's administration of a variety of personnel and employee benefits related activities. General fund revenues, it's been a pretty good year. Overall, our actual revenues exceeded budget by $545,000, and you can see how that breaks down. Largest one being the impact fee, which came in $215,000 over budget. And Mark's department had a banner year for zoning permits, $174,000 over budget. So overall, the charges and fees for services were $221,000 over what we had budgeted. And the other one I want to call attention to is the refunds and interest. Yeah, the interest market was crazy for everybody this year. I mean, all the municipalities are reporting banner years for interest income, and we're no exception. I think the general fund itself was $70,000 over budget. Crazy. And then we had some refunds from the police services, Center Tax Agency, and then the Center County. A couple years ago, the township provided a donation to Center County towards trying to get an airline over out the park, and I guess that didn't go through, and so they returned that money, and that was kind of it's like kind of just showed up, and we were kind of glad to see it though. General fund expenditures, actual versus budget. Again, it's this pretty good year for the general fund, $105,000 under budget. And you can see again, once again, the breakdown of that, the major items. Sometimes it's not the budget. The budget is good, but what happens is there's the delay in something, or you have problems ordering something and it doesn't come in time. So the budget is good, but the money actually gets spent in a different year. So timing differences happen all the time. But we did save some money on salt and anti-skid, $52,000. Stormwater and TMDL costs. Let's see here, and yeah, the insurance and employee benefits were $123,000 under budget. And most of that was the health insurance. Again, that's a function of who doesn't take insurance, who opts out of insurance, family versus single. So, that's kind of a hard number to pin down sometimes. Township property tax, we assessed $2,830,000. The supplement goes out March 1st, and then, I'm sorry, the main billing goes out March 1st, and then there's 2 supplemental billings, February and July, so the total was $2,800,000. So we had, we collected $4,800 in penalties. Discounts we provided was $52,000, and there were some exonerations, $12,000. So the total amount to count for was $2,770,000. So what we turned over to the township, $2,752,000, and what was uncollected and went through the county was $18,000, which is 0.64% of the assessed value, which is just slightly a little behind what we did last year, was 0.55%. But I think, yeah, it's amazing how well the property collections do come in. Okay, the investment in equipment and infrastructure spent a lot of money again. A lot of this is timing and the carryover fund balance. Maintenance vehicles and equipment, $582,000. I think there were 2 units that were the chassis only, and they're currently out right now being fitted out, I think, with their bodies. HVAC system upgrade, $49,000. $448,000 for traffic calming projects, 2 of them. And a sinkhole repair and pipe inspection, $52,000. We did budget the pipe inspection, and that came, I think, right in on budget. And the sinkhole repair, of course, that's an emergency thing, and you really can't budget for things like that. Office building exterior, I think it's part 2. I think part 1 was last year, $143,000. And then there were 2 roads that were resurfaced, Decibel and J Lane, for $142,000. So we invested a lot of money in capital improvements. Okay, looking ahead, there should be an interim financial presentation in June and November, year-end review in March of 2025. Capital improvement program is next up on the list, May and June timeframe. Audit presentation should be in June, and then we'll be working on the budget come November and December. And then, of course, I always end with this slide here. We have a wealth of information on the township website. The budgets are there, capital improvement programs, copies of our audits, and lots of opportunities for public service.
Adam, anything to add?
No, just a big thank you to Bob. He gave you a rundown of what everybody in his department does, but Bob is the wheel that makes things run up there. And so we want to thank Bob for his many years of service here to the township. He does a great job. And I think it shows in the reporting that we receive. He's on top of things and make sure that the dimes and nickels get accounted for, which is what we need to do. So, just real quick comment, Bob was talking about our collection rate relative to property tax. That is an outstanding rate of collection. And we consistently in College Township have that same level of outstanding rate of collection. Many communities across the Commonwealth and in other states would perhaps give a pinky or an eye tooth to be able to have that kind of that collection rate. So it's actually a compliment to the residents and the homeowners and the property owners of the township. They take it seriously and appreciate the services that are provided by the township. So, that's it.
Susan, anything?
I had a process question. Looking at the memo that you prepared for us. Thank you for all this work.
Sure.
I'm new to the budgeting process, and So you made the note at the end that the 2023 budget was adopted in December 2022 and in November 2023. So was that a difference from years prior?
No, it's just, I just want to call the attention to the fact that, the numbers you budget, when you get to the end of the year, those numbers are then forecasted.
Right.
And they can be a lot different than what you had budgeted.
Well, and it
And
looked
then
like
the
most of the
actual, correct.
numbers that were
But it-
forecast were pretty close to what
Yes.
actual was at the end of the
Yes,
at the
yes.
beginning of the year, so, okay, well, thank you. That
welcome.
note stood out for me, so thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Rich is still pouring through the spreadsheet, so we'll go with Tracy.
I don't have any questions.
No? I'll go ahead of Rich because he's still digging deep into the spreadsheet.
Wow.
The impact fee was $221,000 over budget, and that was the number, so we budgeted zero?
No,
No.
no.
Okay, then I misunderstood.
Yeah, we budgeted 200 and some $1,000, I believe. So we,
It
I think-
was a significant collection year.
Yeah.
With the number of events that were held that were subject to the impact fee.
Right, but, so we were pretty accurate in projecting what we would get?
Well, we were low in our projection. It exceeded,
Oh, it exceeded by 220.
correct.
I got you.
Correct,
All right.
yeah.
After.
Yeah, that's right, that was that, okay.
Yeah.
I was listening, not watching.
Yeah, I understand.
The overage for the sinkhole that was due to the sinkhole, because we budgeted the pipe inspection, was that just one sinkhole?
Yeah, I think so. Just one, I think that was all we had.
Yes.
Just
That
one,
was
yeah.
the one behind Center Concrete, that road?
I'm not sure which
Okay.
School
sinkhole.
district was involved with that? School district.
Oh,
it's
yes,
Fogelman
yeah, the
Field.
one that was in
Fogelman
Fogelman
Field.
Fields.
Field,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right, Bob.
So that, when we have a sinkhole, that's about our normal cost, roughly
Yeah,
30,000
yeah.
to fix? Okay. How often do those, there's obviously no,
Let's not jinx it.
Whenever
Let's
they
not
want to
jinx it.
happen.
Well, I've been here 21 years, and I know we've repaired 3 at the big basin below Walmart. We just that one at Fogelman Fields, and there's been a few smaller ones, probably one every 2-3 years.
okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, are you ready?
Yes. Great. You brought up a great point about the impact, and that was actually conscientiously, we made a decision to budget conservatively for that
I remember that discussion.
as a result of COVID and everything, that we wouldn't be caught counting those. So that's a good news story there. The only question I had is, Bob, is your presentation going to be on the website, or could you send it to
Yes, it's
council?
on the website.
It's already there.
Mhm.
Great,
I
thank
think
you.
it's been posted. Yep.
Okay, great.
Thanks to Jen.
Yeah, because I'm just curious on a couple of the tie-outs from in particular, your year-end fund balance summary, which is a great document that we're actually asking COG to potentially adopt something similar
Yeah.
in that. So, Bob's setting the standard.
Then, discussion item, the agenda lists potential action. What would any potential action be in this particular case?
It probably just didn't get it.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm
This is
Just
sorry.
discussion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind.
This is an FYI.
Okay.
Yep.
Fine, thank you. If there is no further discussion, thank you, Bob. And that will
Thank
move
you.
us on to NB2, which is a discussion potential action item. The memorandum of understanding University Drive pedestrian signal, mid-block pedestrian crossing at University Drive. It sounds like staff is looking for action, but before we consider a
Yes.
motion, Don, the memo here is from Adam, or from you through Adam.
Yes.
So are you going to explain what we're
Yes,
doing?
we also have Rich Manning from Penn State here to talk about this, and answer any questions. But Jen, can you put up exhibit number 1? Basically, over about a year ago, Penn State reached out to College Township to talk about the possibility of a mid-block crossing at University Drive. They had identified an area of high student crossings on an area that there was not a crosswalk, and therefore was a safety concern. So we met with them. Amy was in on these meetings, a couple of meetings, and coordinating through PennDOT. One of the things they decided is with a mid-block crossing, you have to have signage, at least, the absolute minimum. But due to the high volume of pedestrian traffic and the volume of vehicles, PennDOT asked that there be these rectangular flashing beacons. And what that is you get up to the crossing and you press a button and it begins to flash, and then you can cross the road. This road is not a township road, but any road within a municipality, any signals on a road within a municipality, whether it's a municipal road or a state road, the municipality is responsible for the signals. Now, these rectangular flashing beacons are considered signals. So we would be responsible for that. So we got with Penn State and developed a memorandum of understanding as to who is responsible for what. For example, the township is responsible for the signal, the pedestrian buttons, and all above ground facilities associated with the signal. Penn State would be responsible for the ramps, the sidewalks, curbs, paint markings. So we had an MOU developed for this, and we ran it through Lewis. He looked at it and gave it his okay. And what we're looking at is we would be responsible for the signals and all maintenance. Oh, and by the way, Penn State supplies the electricity, but they are responsible for the ground features. And that's pretty much my item here. If you have any questions, either myself or Rich can answer.
Okay, Rich, hold off a minute. We'll see if we have any questions, then we'll ask you to come to the podium. Adam, anything else to add?
No, I mean, other than for those members of council that may not know, this is in perpetuity. Once we accept, or once a signal is established, we are the maintainer of that signal. So this is not an MOU or an agreement that would be renewed every so often. Once we accept it, we are accepting that responsibility. It's really no different than our typical traffic signals at intersections. It's the same, it works in the same way. But I just wanted to be sure that folks understood that, you know, it's a long-term commitment.
All right, staying on that side of the room. Tracy, any questions about what's being proposed?
No.
Rich?
Just for, so everybody, university, or this road is a PennDOT road.
Yes, it is not a township road.
Yes, and it's not a university road.
Yes, no,
It's a
it
state-
is a PennDOT road.
It's a state road,
Yep.
and they're putting this in. It appears what they're putting in is very similar to what they're putting in on South Atherton as part of that work.
Yes.
I'm all about the safety. I mean, obviously, it would be nice if we could delegate the cost, all of the cost to our friends on the Hill, but I understand.
Susan?
I guess the question I have is, this being about cost delegation, it sounds as if this is a mandate that we need to accept these facilities. Is that correct?
The decision about accepting the signal in this particular case is one of your discretion. Typically, when we're installing a signal, it is more of a mandatory scenario. But this is more of the voluntary nature of accepting the responsibility in recognition of safety, et cetera. But typically, when we're dealing with a signal on, or related to, for example, a development, those are governed by HOPs and.
There's the warrants that have to be
warrants that
met,
have
and
to
if
be
they,
met.
if they're not met, you can't put it in, and if they are met, you have to put it in.
Okay,
Right.
because we've been talking about that out on Struble Road, not on Struble Road, on Shiloh Road, with the new
Correct.
development out there, so those two pieces came together. And I guess the only question I would have for Penn State, again, I'm not familiar with traffic signaling, but the rectangular rapid flashing beacons are different than a traffic signal. And is there a safety consideration to that choice? Are there other choices?
Well, yeah, Rich, why don't you go to the podium then, unless staff can answer that, either Don or.
Well, I mean, this is the typical facility for a pedestrian-only crossing. This isn't a crossing where there'll be vehicles stopping. I mean, other than they stop for there's no lights.
Right.
So this is typical. I know when I was in Florida to visit my son, they're all over the place down there. And for the most part, you can cross a 6-lane road and people actually do stop, which surprised me. I don't
Okay,
know.
so for clarification, it's not like there was a catalog of signs and somebody picked one, if you're gonna do this.
Now,
that's
this
the
is,
sign.
I think is good, you're gonna see these more and more, but it is only for mid-block crossings.
Okay.
If this crossing was at a actual intersection, then you would have traffic signals for the vehicles and push buttons, and then you'd have the walk, don't walks and things like that. But no, this is just for pedestrian access. And I would like to point one other thing out that I didn't make clear. All construction costs will be borne by Penn State. We're going to be responsible for maintenance once it's done, but the actual signal construction cost will be Penn State's.
Something else,
Helpful.
I'm sorry.
Well,
You know, it's helpful because since we got this, and I've been watching people at crosswalks, and I drive down University almost every day, and that is really kind of a free-for-all down there, and I'm surprised that more
That's-
people aren't hit. So I was really glad to see this project. But to your point about those crosswalks, I've seen more and more of those in other places. I don't see them many here. And I do notice that people don't observe the crosswalks quite often, especially on College Ave.
Well, they don't just observe the crosswalk at Pike Street too, but.
Yeah, so I'm trying to visualize these rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And so that, it's one more thing that's
Yeah.
going to remind people that these are happening.
Yeah, there's going to be one on each side of the road, and then there's an overhead one, so it's really going to be lit up.
The other thing I was simply going to mention is that whenever we get into these type of traffic pedestrian devices, these are all prescribed by PennDOT,
Okay.
right? The
Yes,
manual.
that's,
There are only certain things that PennDOT will in fact allow to be utilized as a particular, in a particular type of facility. So a pedestrian facility has the ability to use these, and Don made the distinction, this is mid-block versus intersection. But PennDOT actually utilizes a manual that prescribes exactly what you can, if you're going to do it, this is what it's going to be.
And that was exactly my question. If you brought up the point, if there's a catalog of choices, why would Penn State pick this over another? It's more of a technical question, but it's something I'd like to be familiar with. I'm sure we'll be seeing these.
no, PennDOT is determined that for this situation, this is the answer.
Thank you.
Okay, Rich, you're off the hook unless you have anything you want to add?
No, I think you guys did a great job.
Okay, well, we're not done yet.
Don did a great job.
Well, and thank you for the project work. Thank you.
Yeah. So, just so we understand, you mentioned warrants. You either meet them or you don't, but in mid-block crossings, apparently, it's.
There was originally, there was a pedestrian traffic study basically performed, correct?
Okay, so this was.
There's a traffic pedestrian study that's done that PennDOT did, and I'm Rich Manning with Penn State Design Services. So PennDOT did come out along with the township and the university to observe and do a count for the crossing to make sure that it did meet the warrants for an enhanced mid-block crossing, which is essentially what this is. So
Okay.
it's an enhancement to notify vehicles and to help pedestrians cross safely, which is only activated again when there is a pedestrian that wants to cross. So it's not a signal as in a traditional vehicular signal, but it's enhanced safety.
Well, that's helpful to know. So going back to what Don said, had it not met that warrant, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
No.
But since it did, then we're moving forward. So following up on that, I kind of see this as I see this from the other side. I see this as a developer or a property owner partnering with us, because had we initiated it, we would be bearing all the cost of it.
True.
So in this sense, we're working together like we would with the developer on a land development plan, where we're splitting the costs, because even if the developer puts traffic light in, it turns it over to us anyway. So it seems like it's very consistent with what would happen that came out of the land development plan process. So kudos, by the way, to initiating it, because I've thought that was a dangerous pedestrian crossing for a long time. And then when the hockey arena came online, that just made it worse, because all the parking, most of the parking for hockey is across the street.
Right.
And those events happen at night. So it's good timing, at least in the sense that we're trying to get ahead of it before, something really bad happens up there. So it's got my support. Any other questions?
Just
Rich?
one alibi. I can see this, and Susan touched on it, is we put this all in and they still don't use it. And you saw that on Atherton Street at College and Beaver and all that kind of stuff. It was a free-for-all in there. Penn State put fences in, and Penn State and PennDOT put fences in and really helped the safety there. And might see that in the future for that.
Well, so the fence is meaning it forces people to channel out.
To use the
across.
designated area versus
Good point.
where it's convenient. So, yeah, no, and this is even more enhanced than what is on Atherton Street. They don't have the upper components that this one does, so this is gonna be quite a piece.
Well, and I will say that this happens to be in the location where people tend to naturally cross anyways,
Yeah.
even though they're not forced to cross there. So I don't know if that was a consideration or not.
Oh, no, that was one of the things they noted, is that was where everyone was crossing now.
Yes.
They found the beaten path.
They follow the goat path, yes. Put the crossing, put the sidewalk where the goat path.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's good
The
to hear.
goats go this way and that way. The goats have to go this way now.
All right, any further questions? Then, thanks, Rich. I think the next step would be, staff is looking for action, because it is a memorandum of understanding. So I'm looking here in
Sign.
I'm looking for a
got it.
potential. You got it?
There isn't a potential motion, but just question to the manager, who is the signatory? The chair or the manager?
Either will work.
Is there a preference?
Whoever council would so choose to designate. But it could be, I can execute this on your behalf, or the chair may execute it. And it's not
Discretion of,
otherwise indicated in the MOU, it's your discretion.
If you're not indicated, it's anyway.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I would move that we authorize the manager to execute the memorandum of understanding for the mid-block pedestrian crossing at University Drive.
a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tracy. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, Rich, for the good work with partnering with the township. I know the agenda item's over, but timeline for construction.
This summer.
Thank you.
Contract has been let, and we anticipate that we'll start after graduation in May, and hopefully have it completed prior to fall.
Thanks.
Great, good timing. All right, then that concludes NB2, and that takes us to our last new business item of the evening, NB3, allowable uses, general industrial zoning district, I-1. Lindsay, this is potentially an action item, but before we consider any action, let's hear what you have to say.
Okay, thank you. So just recently, College Township staff became aware of two uses that were in place in the general industrial zoning district that were not permitted. One was a church and the other was a boxing gym. So those are both categorized in our zoning ordinance, the church as a place of assembly and a boxing gym as an indoor recreation facility. So after discovering these uses, we contacted our solicitor, Louis Glantz, and he gave us a letter with his opinion, which is outlined in your memo and attached with your memo. So, and I have a little presentation to go along, but it's just some photos and whatever's in the memo. So I'll just work through this. Solicitor Glantz gave us two options. One, that council may remand to the planning commission with the intent to include both places of assembly and indoor recreation facilities in the permitted uses chart for general industrial zoning district. The other option is the do-nothing option, which is to allow the zoning officer to issue, it's not really doing nothing, but it's not taking any action on the zoning end with updating the ordinance, but Mark would then take action and issue enforcement notices. Once those enforcement notices are issued, the property owner would have the opportunity to appeal the decision of the zoning officer, and therefore a zoning hearing would be set. As outlined in Lewis's letter, that would mean he would work then possibly with the property owner's attorney to sort of allow a stay in that timing so we could have a year until the Dale Summit area plan was in place, and possibly at that time the zoning would be changed, allowing these uses to be permitted without making a zoning change at this time. But we know that's at least 12 months, maybe more away. So with Lewis's two options, staff went ahead and outlined some pros and cons for those two options. And of course, you know, there may be more out there as council may wish to consider more and expand upon these. But just to go over them briefly, we would, in including the uses in general industrial, both, it would help us take a step towards implementing the Dale Summit area plan. Permitting that use wouldn't just satisfy this property owner, but over the past few years, we've had a lot of inquiries about allowing places of assembly and indoor recreation facilities in the general industrial zoning area because we have the buildings and the land for it, but up until now and still now, they were not permitted uses within the general industrial zoning district. Both options are procedurally acceptable. Some cons to the first option would be, of including those uses, would be, you know, it's an additional zoning change. So that's, you know, another zoning amendment. It would be another task on the planning commission's workload. And some of the timing with substantial zoning changes can be about 3 months. So then we get to the option of issuing enforcement notices and possibly allowing a continuance, also procedurally acceptable. This would also, allowing this to move forward in this way, would allow council and staff to consider more those uses if they should be permitted in the general industrial zoning district or not. And historically, these enforcement issues don't go to the planning commission, so that would be one step that we could skip, kind of making the process go a little bit faster. But unless approved by the zoning hearing board, we're not 100% sure that those uses would be permitted. It would just have to be up to the zoning hearing board at that point. Time and expense, zoning hearings can be expensive and they have strict time periods per the MPC. And like I said, there's no guarantee the uses would be approved by the zoning hearing board. To give you a better understanding of where these uses are permitted places of assembly are permitted in a lot of zoning districts currently, including ag, the whole way up to office commercial. The only places that they are not permitted is the forest district, the open space recreation conservation district, and currently general industrial. Indoor rec facilities is a little different. They are permitted in the residential office district, the general commercial, and the office commercial zoning district, but nowhere else in the ordinance. So I know Mark has something that he wants to go over, but I wanted to just get the details out to council. And depending on how you want to move forward, we've incorporated some ordinance language in here. In case you do, in fact, remand this to the planning commission, it would be a smooth transition to get this to them. Or if you want to go the other way with the zoning hearing and working with the solicitors, that's all your prerogative. So that's my report. I don't know if, Mark, you have anything to add at this point?
I just want to point out to council, if you haven't noticed, there is one gentleman on the queue. Oddly enough, just several days after our last meeting, when this request was brought to council, received a call from a new owner of a building in the industrial district requesting the same thing. So I believe that's the reason Mr. Houts is on. I explained the process is if you want to go this, if you want this, you have to request from council. I told him he could do it in person, by letter, and it looks like he's here to more than likely, he's going to make a similar use change request. I've discussed this multiple times with our solicitor till we got to this point. The solicitor did give me the go-ahead to speak on his behalf as far as he believes the cleanest and easiest way to do this would be to remand to Planning Commission to allow these uses now. Again, that's the cleanest and easiest. We discussed with this Dale Summit area plan, I think most of staff thinks there's a high likelihood that when the Dale Summit area plan is completed, there's a very good likelihood that these uses will be included. I personally, the way things run, I don't see that. I think there's a good possibility that 12 months, if we were to start the enforcement process, I don't know that in that 12-month period that they could kind of put a stay through mutual agreement with the attorneys for a year. We still may not be there. And I told my solicitor, or our solicitor, that I wouldn't feel comfortable going anywhere beyond a year should we not have something in place by then. On a side note, probably 4 years, maybe 4 or so years ago, we had a very similar use in an adjoining property. We went through the enforcement and that use had been discontinued. So I feel comfortable with our solicitor's advice that we could let this go to zoning hearing and they could mutually agree to not conduct that hearing within the 60 days and push it out a little bit. So that's where we're at, and I don't know if this point, if you would like to hear from anyone who may be online that would like to make any requests, but.
No, actually, what I would like to do is give council first the
Okay.
option to ask any clarifying questions of either Mark or Lindsay about what's presented before us. And Adam, did you have something?
Just a little bit of context. One of the reasons that we are engaged in the Dale Summit area plan and specifically taking a look at form-based code is because a number of years ago, we found ourselves dealing virtually every other meeting with tweaks and modifications to our either commercial and or industrial zoning district. And it was very similar types of things that were being brought forward incrementally, and we were trying to make modifications. And it was around that point in time that collectively the decision was made that there needs to be a better mousetrap. And that kind of began our journey on this road that we find ourselves now. Clearly, there is a strong likelihood that should form-based code go through, that these uses that we're talking about now, which are presently not permitted within the industrial district, they could very well be permissible under a new form-based code type scenario in this area. And that is the dilemma. The dilemma is, we've already had previous enforcement actions that we have taken against similar uses that were not permitted. We have found new uses, but we have now found those uses at the same time that we're going through a process that may ultimately approve them or allow them to exist in this same area. So that is the dual challenge, that's the yin and the yang, if you will, of the issue at hand here. It's a change. The change would have to go through the typical zoning process, remand to planning commission, back to council, public hearing, change the zoning, the existing zoning document, knowing that within some period of time thereafter, there could be blanket change that's been made to the zoning district that would otherwise allow it. And the same holds true for the enforcement action. So that's just a little context that I thought bared repeating. So that was it.
All right. No particular order, since this is the last agenda item. Anybody chomping at the bit with a question?
Well, following up what Adam said, so is it going to be a similar cost for both, either way? So it's like doing it now or doing it later? Is that essentially what it is?
Well, yes, I mean, that is the argument that it's being put forward. That would be an argument for council to take action now. Because we are likely to get to the same place later. So that would be one of the pros. You would allow these uses to be incorporated into the existing zoning ordinance now, as opposed to biding time or waiting until they were officially otherwise incorporated.
There's no cost moving forward with a zoning amendment. There is a cost moving forward with a zoning hearing.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, Rich, just a note, there's a lot of assumptions being tossed out here on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just,
Okay. Rich,
just
are you
one,
done?
just a clarification on the zoning hearing board. The council has the authority to waive the zoning hearing board fee or not?
You do.
Okay,
Yeah, you have.
okay, just wanted to full disclosure.
Yes, we've had that discussion in the
Yeah.
past, so. Anything else, Tracy?
No, it's everything.
Rich?
Yeah, I'm,
Right now, we're focusing on clarifications.
yeah, I
We'll move to-
have no clarifications needed. I even understand the yin and the yang.
Yeah, and then maybe we'll just go to a straw poll after we get all the information on the table. Susan?
I do have a question about the continuance on the zoning hearing. Is that a 60-day continuance, or, I'm not understanding, it sounds like there's a strict timeline based on the MPC, yet our solicitor would be working with the solicitor or the property owner to facilitate continuance. Would that be a continuance that would extend out to a year?
They could both waive, there's no absolute set time frame,
Okay.
but
So
both
this is-
sides could mutually agree to waive that 60-day requirement for the hearing. 12 months is pretty much pushing, I think, is pushing the boundaries of, the spirit of instituting a delay.
Okay.
Under the MPC, when a zoning hearing is requested, you have 60 days to set the hearing and
Okay.
hold the hearing.
And going 12 months or more, I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know how long it's going to take. So pushing that, when you say pushing it, that's because it's just not a precedent to push it that far, or?
I'm not sure exactly.
I think it's that is a rather lengthy
Okay.
continuance.
So once you've
Number one.
identified the violation, it needs to be addressed in a very timely fashion?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
And timely is left to interpretation.
That's correct.
Yes.
Of the zoning officer.
Of the zoning
correct.
officer. Okay.
Well, and, you know, this is why, you know, I'd intended to institute this by the end of last month, the enforcement, because this was on the agenda. I'm waiting to see what happens here.
America's waiting.
Yes.
All right.
Just a procedural follow-up to the, so the 60-day hearing is a right of the property
That
owner
is
to
correct.
get
The
timely,
requestor.
to timely response, that the township couldn't drag their feet and drag it out and everything. But then it becomes into a similar scenario as when the developer grants the township an extension of time to whatever. So it's on a similar footing as that. Okay, thank you.
So just to follow up on that, should the property owner see value in extending that, much like the property owner sees in extending that, versus getting a hard and fast rule from the zoning hearing board, it may be in their best interest to continue that out to 12 months or more.
Yeah, again, the one thing I have hesitancy is, and I think our solicitor believes that 12 months is pretty much as far as they would want to push it out.
As far as they would want to push it out.
As far as, we're still, as I said, we're a few years removed from a very similar use in a neighboring property. And I personally would not, and I told our solicitor, personally, I would not feel comfortable going anything beyond that 12 months, given the fact that we've addressed a similar situation.
Previously.
Yes, in the very recent past. I would not feel comfortable giving this indefinite. This Dale Summit Area Plan could be done in 12 months. It could be done in 3 years. We don't know how long it's going to take to get through everything.
Right. And there's no guarantee it will include the changes.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yes.
And I think, if I may.
Sure.
And that's actually my concern, is that we've had other people and we've told them no, and now these people were going to say, okay, well, we'll put it in. And that's a little bit of a concern for me.
So for clarity, this has come up in the past, and there has been a decision to not amend the ordinance to include the uses. Is that correct?
Not
in the
these
general
specific
industrial.
Not these
uses,
specific.
but yes.
Okay.
We
Similar.
have made a conscious decision. Again, one of the important things here, high level, is the council is not obligated to do anything with their zoning, regardless of who makes the request. That is entirely within the purview of council's decision. Requests can be made, it's ultimately your purview whether you consider it or dismiss it. So that's important to note. But we have had in the past, we have had folks that have requested certain types of uses, and the council has said, no, thank you very much, but we're not looking to make a change at this time. We had, several years ago, we had an individual that was looking for a change to facilitate the sale of a building. And there had been a request that was made, and council did not act on that request. So we've had those situations that have occurred.
And I think, to follow up on that, should you be interested in why, I think that would be fleshed out in the next round here as we move into the next phase of this discussion on the differences between the two. Feel pretty confident that'll come out in that.
Can I ask one more question? Due to the violations and the improper uses, is the liability on the owner or is it on township if anything should go wrong?
Well, ultimately, this falls upon the owner. It's my job. I'm not doing my job. If I discover a nonconformity, my job is to take the appropriate action. And once this was discovered, actually days before your last meeting, I started it with a phone call. Said, are these uses here? They're not allowed. Don't panic. I'll give you a couple days or a week to think about it. I'm gonna take some time and think about it. We'll talk, but we're gonna have to resolve it. And ultimately, I assumed we would go to enforcement. And then we had the request at the last council meeting, and this was placed on the agenda.
Okay, so if we're done with clarifying questions, I think for expediency here, maybe we just do a little straw poll, see if there is a consensus on one of those two options, and then we can move forward on that, and if there isn't, then we can open up the discussion to see if we can reach a consensus. So, anybody want to start? Otherwise, I'll start with Susan. And you can say, I'm undecided.
I'm undecided.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm undecided.
Oh, boy, well, maybe you should. Rich?
Should I throw in this?
No.
Again, I understand both sides of this discussion. And highly likely, probably, all that good kind of stuff. I've been not prepared to forego our normal processes. I think by what is being suggested as a potential cooling period, I guess I would call it, is, I think is fair. And
That would be the second of the two options.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Assuming the caveat that the solicitor offered, assuming that the zoning officer could support that.
Well, you know.
And the big thing, anytime we're looking at adding uses to a zoning district that hasn't had those uses in there before, I'm always conscious that you're picking winners and losers, because you're adding value to the one that is receiving the use, and you're devaluing those other zoning districts that already have that, because now they got even more competition than they had before. The place of assembly is interesting because, they could have picked any of the other ones.
9. There's 9 districts it's allowed in already.
Right. And so now that one's a little bit different. The indoor.
Oh, I'm sorry, that one's 3. The
Yeah,
other one is 9.
Right. So I'm always very conscious of that, the unintended consequences type of thing. And then again, I don't like foregone conclusions. There may come a aha moment that says, no, we don't want that in there, for whatever reason. I don't think we're far enough in the process to say that yet. And that's my concern. And so my lean is towards the number 2, assuming that we could do the continuance route such that it gives us a better opportunity to fully or more fully flesh out whether that's going to end up there. And then we still have the time that we can, okay, let's go the remand, when we come up. So that's my lean at this moment, but I'm open.
Sure. I'm with Rich 100%. He stole most of my thunder. It might have been our 20-some years combined on the planning commission, I don't know. But for all the reasons he just articulated, the first, I respectfully disagree with the pros under option 1, step towards implementing Dale Summit Area Plan for the reasons Rich noted. We don't know that we're there yet. That's a big assumption to make. And just because people request it doesn't mean it's an appropriate use for that area. As Rich noted, there are 9 other zoning districts where places of assembly are allowed and indoor recreation three that are indoor recreation facilities are allowed. So I'm a little hesitant to jump the gun, again, for the reasons that Rich noted. We are compromising the integrity of the zoning districts where this is allowed. We may end up doing that through a much more deliberate process than just tossing this to the planning commission tonight. That's fine, so be it, that's how it works. But I would hope that if it ended up that way, it would include some changes, requirements in the zoning district, because one of the reasons, and we ran into this with the veterans, and the realtors stood here and told us point blank, this property is much more affordable because it's in the industrial zoning district. And it's much more affordable because you aren't requiring the type of amenities, streetlights, sidewalks, those kinds of things for activity that happens 7 days a week, at night and on weekends, these type of things generate. That's why that property, so that circles back to Rich's point that we're kind of compromising the integrity and the value of those zoning districts that do allow those things. So if we do end up through the deliberate process allowing that, I would expect that it would come hand in hand with the needed changes, the requirements in those zoning districts to accommodate 7-day-a-week traffic, in the industrial zoning district. I live 2 blocks away. There are no street lights. It's dark at night. There is nothing to really accommodate, people coming and going at night or on weekends like there is on these other zoning districts. So that's why I favor, if we're going to take action, 2, because it also, as Rich noted, gives us the opportunity to revisit 1 should we go down that road and discover it's going to take more than 12 months, or our zoning officer is getting uncomfortable, then I feel more comfortable revisiting it under that scenario than right now. So.
Well, Rich.
Just to follow up, I just want to acknowledge the property owner of the parcel, offered that many of the things that you're indicating that general industrial doesn't have, they do.
On that particular site.
On that particular site,
But people have to travel by the other sites to get there.
Right, and regardless, it's still in that zoning district.
Yeah.
It's a very nice property in that zoning district.
And Rich and I experienced this with the Veterans Clinic, very similar. That generates traffic. I guess we're a little better off there, and that's mostly 8 to 5, and that's on the fringe of the zoning district, so the impact is limited to the fringe. So, Susan?
Yeah, so I appreciate what you both shared with your experience. Because looking at this, I was thinking of the work that we did with the PRD and the PRBD. And we did that with an eye towards keeping the message out there that the township is open while we're doing the Dale Summit area work. That was very important. And this is different. This is different than that. And the other concern I had new to this is that if we do make a zoning change, what are the other zones in the townships that are zoned industrial, general industrial? This change will apply to those as well, and there is a separate area, the cannery area. So, the decision has downstream effects. Recognizing that, we are working on improving the uses in the Dale Summit area. But I appreciate what you said, Rich, that adding the use in a zone devalues the other zones that have that use already. I hadn't thought about that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, just to follow up on that, we have just as much obligation to those zoning districts as we do to this one.
Well, and your point at the last meeting about the amenities, the safety amenities, I did go look at the property, and there are lights and other safety features around that one property, but it's not a guarantee that everybody would have them, and traveling through to get to those spots, if we kept making those changes, people would start you know, applying those uses in other areas, you would have these little sort of spots, oases of lights and things like that, but it wouldn't be a safe, there wouldn't be a safe passage around that area, not for these uses.
But under a more comprehensive zoning revisit under Del Summit,
Yeah.
you could make that a requirement
Yeah.
for those uses, you know, and then you would slowly build that in, should that come, should we decide we want to entertain that as uses in those zoning districts.
Well,
Right.
and that area has that blighted feel for that very reason, which is why we are moving to form-based code or a hybrid form-based code. And maybe this does serve as an example as we walk through the decisions on how to develop that code, that we really do want to be able to expand the uses in this area. And we have a commitment, and if we don't expand the uses in this area, we're going to keep coming back to these questions at council meetings as different property owners come back and continue to ask us to allow uses to make it a more usable space.
Right,
So.
and along with any zoning update in the future, you know, regulations will go along with these uses too. So parking, sidewalks, infrastructure, I
Right.
mean, that will all be updated, whereas right now it's just as it is now.
I mean, this highlights why this is going to be important if we're going to revitalize that area.
So, I think it's fair to point out that either one of those options benefits the existing tenants, because option number 3 is to do nothing and just begin enforcement, correct?
Yes, well, that's essentially option number 2 is for council to take no action and
Right.
then the enforcement would commence, but they would,
But however, you've outlined a situation under the enforcement where the tenants could continue there. You'd be somewhat off the hook for a certain period of time. The township would be buying some time to see.
I do think it's important to point out that the enforcement is an absolute under number 2.
Right.
The zoning hearing board and potential continuance is theoretical. That could happen. That would need to be followed up by the property owner with the zoning hearing board application and hearing. And then there would need to be a supplemental agreement in essence, or another agreement to allow for the continuance. So number 2 contains both an actual action, which would be the enforcement, and then the theoretical component of that is zoning hearing board continuance.
And that is why that's not the cleanest and easiest solution.
Right.
But philosophically, at least there's a couple of members who are not comfortable with taking the easy road here due to the potential compromise of our planning, long time planning principles that we've endured in the planning commission for many years and here. So, anything else, Adam?
I was just going to say, staff struggled with this one. This is difficult. I mean, it's unfortunate that we had a property owner in this particular case that didn't check, that didn't contact us, went ahead and executed leases, and we have uses now that are not permitted. And that could have been nipped in the bud. We would have been able to properly direct and counsel the property owner about that. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. That automatically then leads us, under normal circumstances, directly to enforcement. And again, we have done those things in very similar situations over the years. But the dilemma, the conundrum, is the fact that, oh yeah, this is happening kind of right smack in the middle of this consideration about potentially changing uses and adding in additional requirements for a reconstituted district. And so staff, I think it's important to point out that staff is not leaning in one direction or another. That's one of the reasons why it's in front of you this evening.
Without a recommendation.
Without a recommendation. You have choices.
Yeah, that's right, we didn't get
You
the
don't have a
recommendation this
recommendation.
time. Oh, right.
noticed that.
That went missing.
All right, so we have some thoughts, we have some members favoring one. Have that discussion given you any thoughts on where you might, one way you might be leaning or the other?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards option 2 now.
Okay.
Recognizing all the things we said. And I do think it is important to note that there is a recognition that we are transitioning out in that area, and that the idea of a continuance allows for some degree of relief for the property owner, recognizing if we weren't doing that, we wouldn't be having this discussion because we wouldn't be transitioning. But because we are, and in recognition of that property owner, and that we really do want to support public safety, but also our property owners, there's some relief in the continuance.
Any thoughts, questions?
No, I'm leaning towards 2 as well, from the standpoint of safety, and also the point that it could be opening up a can of worms if we do this for one, and we can do, then we don't know what the potential snowball effect will happen as we do this for one. So I'm leaning toward option number 2 because of that reason. And and with what Susan said as well, as you guys have articulated, that this continuance could be continuing conversation in the event that the Dale Summit area is developed, and it could be a potential use down the road. But for right now, for safety measures, I think number 2 is the way that I'm leaning.
Okay, it's funny that the precedent guys didn't mention that, the guys that are sensitive to precedent. It looks like we're heading towards a motion here. Ordinarily, we wouldn't open the floor up for comments until we had a motion on the table. However, I see that, Sean, can you read his last name?
Houts. It's Sean Houts.
Sean Houts. I see that Mr. Houts is participating online, has his hand raised. Having heard the discussion, do you have any thoughts for consideration that you'd like to offer council? It's not really a Q&A situation, but did you have anything you wanted to?
I just wanted to, and maybe superfluous at this point, but just affirm Mr. Gabrovic's comments that, we are, I guess, I am also interested in pursuing recreational uses in the industrial district. A little premature to discuss details at this time, but I can say that we're at this time, I think, kind of focused on some what we think are underserved sports communities for youth in the community. And we think there's some reasons for that that we could discuss in an appropriate forum that may be related to, I guess, current zoning limitations. But we also see an opportunity to connect youth, I guess, in that district, I guess, given the placement of the VA clinic to veterans, and maybe create a pipeline, a little bit more of a community, sense of community, I guess, and even just awareness within the youth communities of the sacrifices that servicemen and women have made. But just a little bit of context, I guess, into what we're looking at, but I appreciate the, I guess, council's consideration of those uses.
Mr. Houts, since you're online and you have the floor, maybe you could help us out a little bit here. You've heard the discussion that I think first of all, I think everybody around this table would support that effort and supports and recognizes the needs for what it is that you're thinking about doing. I guess our question is, you could already do that in many other locations around the center region, including 9 different zoning districts in College Township. What is it about this particular piece of property?
Again, without getting into too many specifics, it's the physical characteristics of the properties themselves. So, ceiling height, I guess, in a building that's designed for stacking pallets, you have ceiling heights that enables you to do other things that you're not going to find in unused office spaces or residential office zoning districts.
Okay.
So that's one thing, and then I think there's certain activities that are just going to be a little more cost sensitive, I guess, to other activities because of the density of I guess, the human density of the activity that you're doing.
Okay. Well, that's helpful. I appreciate your sharing that with us. Anything else while you have the floor?
No, I think that's it. I, again, appreciate the time. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, just taking my boys on a little excursion out west. But I will plan to attend in the near future.
Yeah. You're here in person as much as a lot of folks are these days in this remote connection world, so. Thank you. Then let's move back to council. It looks like we may be formulating around a motion here to provide staff some direction. At this point, the chair will open the floor for a motion.
Well, I guess the action is no action.
Well, it instruct the zoning officer to prepare an issue. Was that the hint of a motion, or is this discussion enough?
You have the option of going either way. If you would like to read option 2 as a motion, that's more than sufficient. If you take no action, it clearly indicates to the zoning officer what action needs to be taken.
Okay.
Yes.
Then for the record, for anybody who's not privy to the memo, what we are, by not taking action, we are in essence instructing the zoning officer to prepare and issue enforcement action to the property owners via violation of ordinance, while working with the township solicitor and offering to the property owner the option of a continuance on scheduling a zoning hearing. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
Can we throw a potentially
Put in front of,
the continuance?
yeah, option of a potential continuance via a zoning hearing board.
Yeah, that's fine. There's some nuance in there, but that's fine.
Okay. All right, is everybody comfortable with that? So we don't really have, we're not taking a motion. By not taking a motion, that's the understood action.
Yes.
As
Okay.
long as the zoning officer
I was just gonna
is clear,
say, yeah.
I think we've got it.
Yeah, that does look like a happy smile over there, but,
Hey, my pay's the same no matter what I
oh, boy.
You are not influenced.
Well,
not easy.
I will say that I appreciate the effort of the township staff. Like Adam said, you know, there's an old saying, well, we won't get into that, but, you know, we're trying to help people who made a mistake. The best way we can was, well,
Not making another mistake.
right, by respecting our responsibilities for the rest of the township and the rest of the zoning district, so.
Well said.
And also say that there was a mention in here that the planning commission's queue is pretty long right now. Did I read that correctly?
That is true.
That no one on the planning commission would be too heartbroken if this didn't get tossed down to them with a sense of urgency right now.
That's
Did I
probably
read
true.
that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot coming down, but it's, as Matt indicated earlier, things are starting to meld together and, you know.
Getting some momentum. Okay.
But there's still a lot of heavy lifting.
Oh, definitely, yeah, we hope to, yeah, yes, there is a lot of work to do. We didn't even dive into form-based code yet. We're finishing up workforce housing in 2 weeks and hope to get you a recommendation out of that meeting, so we'll see.
So be at least one happy face in the room. All right, well then, with that, that concludes NB3 and concludes new business, takes us to staff informatives. Anything we need to be informed on beyond what's in the,
For your information.
anything? Okay. Any questions on staff informatives? Then that takes us to other matters. Staff, any other matters?
No, just quick reminder, Jen may have something, but quick reminder, which is the 26th.
7th is the county association
Oh,
meeting.
well,
Spring
the
convention, 26th is
26th
our joint meeting.
is the
Yes.
joint
Right,
meeting
so
of
we'll
the
have to
council, or planning commission.
Yeah, both of those.
Right, we'll actually have DPZ and further along, initiate the discussion on form-based code. So that at that point in time, then the real work will begin.
Right.
Right. And then, I'm sorry, go
The
ahead.
County Association Spring Convention's March 27th, so you really potentially can have dinner 2 nights in a row. Here, and then they're just having a light dinner at the County Association, so 2 meals in 2 days.
And that's at CPI, right?
Yes.
Talk about
The
that.
time on the 26th is 6 o'clock?
Yeah, 6.
I thought, are we
Well, we
having?
were gonna have a meal at 5, and it will be downstairs so that we have, we can visit and mingle a little bit before coming up here at 6 for
At
the meeting.
6 is the
yes.
official start time.
Yeah, that's the
On
advertised.
the
start time.
26th, and the
Yes.
county association dinner begins at?
Well, it's just a buffet kind of a thing. 5 o'clock with all the vendors, 6 o'clock we're having a business meeting with education from PennDOT and hopefully Sean Kaufman. So,
Jen, on our agenda, though, says food and refreshments in the library 5:30.
oh, 5:30. Well, I think we wanted to give you a little extra time, so,
Either way,
okay.
more time here, we'd be fine.
Whenever you, 5 to 5:30.
Anything else under staff informatives? Well, given that, I think everyone in the room would welcome a motion to adjourn.
I motion.
From anyone?
I motion to adjourn.
Okay, I don't need a second, we're adjourned.